What's up, guys and gals? It's the Tyrant here. Welcome back to the weekly Q&As where you guys ask the questions and I give you the answers. First off, I want to say I hope everyone had a very safe and happy new year. Happy New Year to everybody. And I appreciate everyone who joined our live stream marathon for all the original Halo games on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I had a blast. Over 1,000 people showed up to both streams, so thank you all for joining me. If you can't already tell, yes, I still have acute bronchitis and I'm still sick. And so unfortunately, again, I'll be keeping this Q&A kind of short. It's not what I wanted to do, but I don't really have a lot of options. Technically, I'm not even really supposed to be talking, but I know that a lot of people, you know, a lot of my subscribers just really rely on these Q&As. They really look forward to them. And so I try to make every effort to getting them out when they're supposed to be out. So I hope everyone, you know, is okay with this. I'll try to make it up later on in the month with maybe a super Q&A or something like that, where I have like double the usual questions or something. Also, if you haven't noticed, I'm using a different mic today. I just got a new lapel mic with a digital recorder that I can start using when I do all my like reviews and stuff like that. And I figured I'd give it a shot on here just to see what you guys think of the audio quality and hope that it works out for you. So I picked out 7 questions for today, and so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who want to know how you submit questions, you can do it one of 3 ways. You can either do it in the comment section below. You can hit me up on Twitter at MythicTyrant, or if you are a Patreon donor, we have a private Discord, and there is a subsection in that Discord where you can ask your question. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first question of the week comes from Slender Gaming. Always good to hear from you, Slendy. And Slendy asks, Tyrant, I love your content. Q&A, what do you want to happen in Halo 6? I'm saying you. Love the content. Keep up the awesome work, and Merry late Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Well, I'm going to be straight with you. I don't have a lot of expectations for Halo 6 aside from I just want a decent story this time around. I want to care about the characters and what they're doing. I'd like to see a decent and respectable close to Master Chief's story, as well as the Reclaimer story arc in general. I'd love to see a more open-ended game, one that lets you sort of choose your path a little bit. I think that would be great so that the game has more replay value. I'd still like to see things like the squad system, enhanced mobilities return. I know some of you don't like that, but personally, I like them. So that's what I'm hoping so far for Halo 6, and I'm hoping that we get a release date maybe in 2019. But what about you? What would you like to see in Halo 6? Let me know in the comments below, my friend. Our next question comes from Mr. No Life. Oh, don't be so hard on yourself, my friend. And Mr. No Life asks, Q&A, how do you feel after the debate with Hidden Xperia about Halo 2? Do you hate the game more? Do you hate it less? Or has nothing changed at all? Well, my feelings for Halo 2 really haven't changed. Of course, it's still my least favorite Halo game for reasons that I've stated many times in the past. But you know, what I don't usually tell people is there's still things about the game that I appreciate. You know, when I streamed it on Monday, on New Year's Day, it was still fun in its own regard. I just really don't like playing it on Legendary, and I don't think the story went the direction that I was expecting it to go. So that's a big part of it right there. My feelings towards the game itself haven't really changed, but I have a new respect for people who do like the game, if that makes any sense. So I don't openly say, well, if you like Halo 2, you're wrong. At least Hidden Xperia gave me a little bit more perspective on the perception of a Halo 2 fan and why they liked the game, even if whether or not it was their first game shouldn't really matter. I believe Combat Evolved was Hidden Xperia's first game, yet he still loves Halo 2. And you know what? That's okay. If people love Halo 2, that's fine with me. So I guess that's something that I got from it. I hope that answers your question, but that was a good one and I appreciate it. Maybe it'll get people off my back a little when it comes to me not liking Halo 2 so much. You never know. But good question, and I appreciate it, Mr. No Life. Our next question comes from Arc48, and Arc48 asks, "What's that novel about, and could you get it? Getting it published save your channel?" So, for those of you who don't know, I wrote a book a long time ago. I'm in the process of there's a high probability that I can finally get it published. It was basically put on hold for like over a decade, and finally some momentum was brought to the table. I got an editor on board, and you know, we've got some prospects at this point. So first of all, to your first part of the question, what's the novel about? I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but at this point, what the novel's about is about the future. It's about, you know, the possibility of World War III and that sort of thing, but there's a lot more sci-fi to it than that, unlike Shrine. So I hope it's something people appreciate and enjoy. It's a long book. It's almost 1,000 pages. So we'll see how it goes. I'm really looking forward to it. It's divided into 3 parts. I can't even tell you the title at this point because I don't want to give anything away, but it's 30 chapters long for the first part. The second part, the third part have their own lengths too. They're a little bit shorter than part 1, but it's something I'm really looking forward to sharing with you in the long run. Now, will publishing it save my channel? Well, I can tell you right now, the answer is no, and the reason I say that is because it's not like, I mean, even if they, you know, publish it tomorrow, you know, you still have to set a sale date, you have to sign contracts and so forth. There's a lot that goes into publishing a book. You know, the publisher is obviously going to ask for rewrites and things that better suit their brand than just the raw material that you give them. So it's going to be a lengthy process. It could take years. And by that time, I will have made the decision whether or not I can continue with the channel. So either way, you know, I hope people enjoy the book, even if I'm not doing YouTube anymore after that. So that's a great question, Arc48. It's always good to hear from you, my friend. Our next question comes from Ben MUNN. And Ben asks, what would have happened if Bungie created Halo 4, Halo 5, Halo Wars 2, Awakening the Nightmare DLC, and the upcoming Halo 6 game? Well, I can tell you right now, nothing would happen, because if Bungie had their way, they would have stopped production with Halo after Halo 3. They had no intent on releasing ODST or Reach. When they said Halo 3 was finishing the fight, they meant it. The reason they came out with ODST and Reach is because when they wanted to split from Microsoft, it was already in their contract. They had to produce 2 more Halo games, so that's how they did it. They didn't want to do 4, 5, and 6 and any DLC or anything like that. And I respect that. And to be honest with you, if I had my way in post-production with Halo, if it had been my choice, I would have also ended it with Halo 3. That was the high point of the community. I would have still created the ODST expansion with it, maybe another expansion. And then for 2011, I would have done Halo Anniversary, just like 343 did, only Bungie would have done it this time. I would have done Halo 2 Anniversary in 2014 and Halo 3 Anniversary in 2017, instead of creating new content. That way they could still keep the old Halos alive well beyond the point of their initial releases. And that's what I think really should have happened. You know, I like Halo 4 and 5 in their own regards to some extent. I didn't like the Halo 5 story. I think things are starting to get a little bit too fantastic with the Halo universe, but that's just my opinion. You know, Bungie really didn't want to continue with the series, and I think this would have been a faithful way for them to be able to depart from it while still keeping it innovative and alive. So that's my personal response to it. What do you think about it, Ben? Just let me know in the comments below, my friend. Our next question comes from Spartan360, and Spartan360 asks, Q&A, hey Tyrant, if you could add any vehicle from either Halo Wars 1 or Halo Wars 2, including DLC vehicles, to use and or fight in future FPS Halo games, what would it be? Hope you have a great and promising 2018. Thank you, Spartan360. I appreciate that, and I hope you do as well. If I had to add any vehicle into a first-person shooter game that was from Halo Wars, hands down, it would be the Locust. I think that's the coolest, most underutilized vehicle in the Halo universe. I like the fact that it's a mini Scarab. I can easily see it as being some sort of a Covenant boss, maybe like the Grunt Gremlin mech or something along those lines, something to replace the Warden Eternal. I think those are really cool vehicles, and there's a lot of potential. They certainly do a lot of damage in Halo Wars. So I'd like to see that one in the future, and since, you know, they're talking about Halo Wars 2 having a major impact on Halo 6, you never know. So, you know, fingers crossed, my friend, and Happy New Year to you, Spartan. I appreciate it. Our next question comes from Stacking Benjis, and Stacking Benjis asks, Q&A, Chief being a trained super soldier with advanced top-notch armor that multiplies all of his already superb physical abilities, why do so many people think he should die, retire, or anything like that yet? Well, there's a couple of reasons. So I specifically said die because, you know, he's been trained since he was a kid to be a super soldier, and I can't see him retiring or becoming a pilot or a captain or anything like that. He wants to be in the thick of the combat, and I think a self-sacrifice to save humanity from the impending doom of Cortana and the Created would be a very respectable way to send Master Chief out. They could still include him in prequel games and all. That would be fine, but in reality, I just feel like his story is ready to be, in terms of chronologically, is ready to come to a close. In terms of why I don't want them to continue, you know, it gets to a point where even if you really love a franchise or a character, it gets to a point sometimes where the developers behind it or the producers can milk it too much, to the point where you start losing respect for it. The best example I can give here is my favorite TV show, and that's The X-Files. The X-Files, for those of you who are younger viewers, was a show that ran mostly in the 90s and ended in 2002. And you know, I loved the show for everything it was. I'm a huge fan of David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. But here's the thing. If they had done it right, they would have gone with their original idea, which was to end the show after season 7. I loved season 7. By the time season 7 wrapped up, the two biggest issues, or the two biggest conflicts in the series were solved. You know, the men that were, you know, talking to the aliens, sort of coordinating the apocalypse, and also finding Mulder's sister. Really the only thing that needed to be resolved at that point was, you know, stopping the alien invasion that was supposed to happen in 2012. And, you know, they could have done that very easily. You know, when season 7 wrapped up, it actually ended where the show began, in the same town with the same characters, and I thought that would have been very faithful to the series. And what that could have happened after that easily is Mulder, or let me rephrase that, they could have had easily 2 movies to wrap it up following season 7, sort of a part 1 and part 2, especially after the success of the first X-Files film. And I feel like if they had done that and dedicated 2 movies to stopping the alien apocalypse, exposing the alien conspiracy to the public, that would have been a very respectable wrap-up to the series. And had they done that, I could easily say X-Files would have been the best sci-fi TV series since The Twilight Zone. But that's not what they did. Instead, they decided, well, you know what, we can do 2 more seasons without David Duchovny, and that's what they did, largely without him anyway. So they did seasons 8 and 9, and not all the episodes were terrible, but most of them just felt, you know, like soap operas. They were drawn out. They didn't feel like the X-Files. And then after that, it wasn't enough. They ended the series on a cliffhanger, which was complete BS. Then you hear nothing for years. There's all this talk about an X-Files 2 and so forth for the movie, and nothing ever happens. Finally, about 6 years after the show ends, they come out with X-Files I Want to Believe. Guess what? It sucked. And I love the X-Files, but that movie was terrible. It had nothing to do with the mythology at all. And it was basically just a really odd, extended episode of the X-Files. That was it. Don't even know why they felt the need to do it, but they did it. And then nothing. Again, radio silence. You know, they kept talking about an X-Files 3 to wrap up the 2012 Alien storyline. 2012 comes and goes, and they're like, well, we missed that opportunity. Yeah, fuck you, Chris Carter. Thank you so much for your patriotism to your fans. But anyway, so again, there's radio silence, and then we hear about the show's revival for 2016, and they bring the show back for 6 episodes. And in those episodes, they tell you, yeah, the whole alien conspiracy thing was a lie. It was really, you know, about creating a virus that would wipe out humanity and prevent global warming. And I'm sitting there going, the fuck are you doing? That was horrible. I mean, they had 1 or 2 good episodes in that 6-episode run, but in terms of the mythology, it was just kind of like, why? They even brought the cigarette smoking man back, and I'm sitting there going, really? You're actually going to make it so that he survived a rocket to the face? Okay, yeah, that's a thing. So then it ends on another cliffhanger. It seems like it had a very low budget to it, so it didn't even have the X-Files feel at that point, and it was done for. So they ended the season, and then it's again silence for another 2 years. And now they brought it back again. We just saw the first episode this past Wednesday, and I'm sitting there shaking my head because they said, no, last season was a lie. And I'm going, it's all a lie at this point. You should have left well enough alone, but you just kept coming back. And I guess the reason I just went on that tangent is I don't want to see the same thing happening to Halo and the Master Chief. You know, you can already argue that it's gone on for too long, but you know, at this point, if they don't wrap things up with the next game and they just keep trying to drag this out, you know, what's left of the Halo name is just going to be dragged through the mud, and I don't want to see that happen. And I'd like to see a respectable close to Master Chief's story before it's just become a mockery. So it was a long-winded answer, but I hope that answers your question, Stacking Benjis, and I appreciate it. And our star question of the week, our final question, comes from Devon Hart. And Devon asks, do you think that Atriox's forces from Halo Wars 2 could possibly be the main Covenant enemies in Halo 6, or will he still be in the Halo Wars sub-series, and hope you get better? Thank you, I appreciate that, my friend. Here's my thing. 343 has already talked, you know, in brief, that Halo Wars 2 was going to tie into Halo 6. Now, with Halo Wars 2, we've already seen 2 cliffhanger endings, both in the main campaign and the Awakening of the Nightmare expansion. It would be ignorant to say that they weren't going to continue with the Atriox story arc, especially since he's such an awesome villain. Notice that he stands apart from the other Covenant. You know, they get to a point in the original campaign where he actually gives the UNSC, you know, the captain and everything, all those guys, a chance to leave, you know, and says that he won't hunt them down, but just to go away and let them have claim to the Ark, instead of just senselessly wiping them out. He's a very intelligent leader, and I believe he has a much deeper story that needs to be told, and I think that he's going to tie greatly into Halo 6. Now, in terms of what role will he face, you know, it's interesting because we've brought this up before. I have a video out there that says there won't be any Covenant in Halo 6 because of the way they were treated in Halo 5, how Jewel of Dama is no more, how most of the Covenant was wiped out after the Battle of Sinayan. So, you know, the real only option at this point for a sizable force that could oppose the UNSC is having the Banished have some sort of role. If I were to take a wild guess as to what kind of role it would have, I think it would start out as the Banished would be the opposition. You know, Atriox and his forces, which would be cool. I'd love to see the new armor, the new tanks, and everything in first-person format. But here's the thing. Once again, like I just said, Atriox is a very, very intelligent brute, and he's a great leader. And if I can pinpoint anything, he's going to know that the Created and the Prometheans are the greater threat, potentially the Flood, since they came back in Awakening of the Nightmare. And I see a more likely scenario where over the course of the campaign, he would ultimately team up with the Master Chief and the UNSC to go against this greater threat. Now, it could be a situation like with Halo 3, where the Flood very briefly teamed up with Master Chief and the UNSC to go up against the Prophet of Truth. And then immediately after the Prophet of Truth was no longer an issue, the Flood became the biggest threat yet again. As Arbiter said, we trade one villain for another. And so that could very well be the case with Halo 6. We've already seen them draw parallels to the previous trilogy with their current games. Halo 4 draws a lot of parallels to Combat Evolved. Halo 5 draws a lot of parallels to Halo 2. And so now the speculation is that Halo 6, which might take place on the Ark, might not, don't know yet, is going to draw a lot of heavy parallels from Halo 3. If that's true, I could easily see this being the case. You know, it would basically carry over a lot of themes from Halo 3, and I think it would be a decent send-off to the franchise, even if it's not an open-world experience like I've talked about in other videos. So I think that Atriox, at least for part of the game, will play as some sort of antagonist to, you know, Master Chief and the UNSC, but I think at some point they're going to realize that there's a greater threat out there, and they're going to have to join forces if they want even a small chance of survival, because Cortana at this point has control of the Halo rings, she has control over the Guardians, she has control over the legions of Prometheans that are out there, not to mention I'm pretty sure that the Warden Eternal is still some sort of a threat. And so with all that at her disposal, it's going to take a lot more than the UNSC remnants and, you know, Banished or UNSC remnants to deal with that sort of a threat. Because again, keep in mind, the Guardians have already gone to the different colonies and EMP'd most of them. So the UNSC forces are small, the resistance is small at this point. The only forces at this point that have not been affected are the Spirit of Fire and Atriox and his forces. And I can see them sort of coming in at the last minute as the cavalry to sort of finish them off. I do think Halo 6 is going to be a Promethean heavy game, and I don't think we're going to be facing a lot of Covenant species, whether they be from the Storm faction or from the Banished. But if we fight any, I believe most of what we could see is going to be from the Banished, and I really hope they flesh out Atriox in Halo 6. I don't suspect at this point that they're going to make any more expansions to the Halo Wars 2 campaign. I have not seen any indication of that. That's not to say that they won't. I just can't see it at the moment. And so I see their story ending with Halo 6 and Atriox playing a decent role in that, and also the solution to the problems that were started back in Halo 5. So that was an excellent question. I hope it was a great answer to you, or a decent one. I hope it answered your question. And I want you guys to tell me in the comments below, what do you think about Atriox? Would you like to see him as a villain / ally in Halo 6? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter at MythicTyrant. Link to my Twitter feed can be found in the description below. And of course, I'd love for you to check out my Patreon site too, to help keep this site going throughout 2018 and beyond. And we have a store as well that you can check out. Lots of cool items there. Again, thank you guys and gals so much for watching. If you love this channel, if you love these videos, go ahead and click that subscribe button for more great content every single day, at least when I'm feeling better, right here on MythicTyrant.com. Thanks so much for watching, guys and gals. I hope everyone had a very happy new year. I'll catch you all right back here next time. And as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.